Greg, Hurricane Ian came ashore a short time ago as a Category 4 storm, greater in size than the state of Florida itself, striking the Fort Myers, Point Charlotte part of the Gulf Coast with tremendous winds and flooding rain soaking the area. The very latest reports show 1 million Floridians are now without power. According to meteorologists, Hurricane Ian reached speeds of 154 miles per hour, just shy of a Category 5 storm. Veteran meteorologist Stan Goldenberg commented on the potential destruction.
And they're thinking that this might go 10 to 12 feet in certain areas. It depends on the tide. It depends on the exact bays and inlets, what impact they have. But that water level can rise very, very quickly. And people in the line of storm surge should have evacuated, hopefully. I can't emphasize enough, though, storm surge, everything. This hurricane is not a little point on the map. It is a huge area of disruption and impact. It's going to go across the state, affect thousands and thousands of people.
The hurricane displaced countless people through evacuation and caused tornado warnings as well as severe flooding as the water level of surrounding lakes and rivers continues to rise. Governor DeSantis announced it is already too late to safely evacuate residents from any of the Southwest cities.
We are going to have significant rescue operations that are going to have to be done because you have some people, not most, but you do have some people who've chosen to hunker down in some very vulnerable areas. And so that is going to be something that I know that they're keeping a very close eye on. They're going to monitor the impacts of the storm and then monitor how those folks have been able to weather it. But we anticipate, whether it's ground, water, air, all different types of ways to go in and help people. That's going to commence immediately upon this storm hitting.
U.S. citizens are being urged to make their own arrangements to get out of Russia and get out now. The warning came Tuesday as a security alert from the U.S. Embassy. The alert stated commercial flights out of Russia are very limited, but land routes remain open. One concern is Russians may refuse to acknowledge dual American and Russian citizenship and attempt to force some into military service in Ukraine. According to the embassy, in some cases, U.S. citizens have been arrested for taking part in protests inside of Russia. The U.S. embassy also made it clear it has very limited options to help Americans within Russia if they have a problem.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin appeared on Fox and Friends today, explaining how his rules would protect the dignity, privacy, and safety of students.
We first want to love every kid, and we want to make sure that we're protecting their dignity and their privacy and their safety. And the difference in what our policies are really focused on is indeed bringing parents fully in. My predecessor issued policies that, in fact, excluded parents, and I don't think that's correct. And Virginia voters spoke loudly about that last year. And so the draft policies, which are up for 30 days of comment, are fully focused on bringing parents into that discussion as a primary decision maker, not to exclude a trusted teacher or a trusted advisor or counselor, but to recognize that these most important decisions must involve parents.
Now, Youngkin's 2022 model policies define sex as biological sex and transgender students as a public school student whose parent has requested in writing, due to their child's persistent and sincere belief that his or her gender differences with his or her sex, that their child be so identified while at school, end quote. Youngkin said if parents authorize a change in a student's name, pronoun, or bathroom use, the accommodations will be made for that student. But the draft policies would make sure that school sports would protect girls by separating competition by biological sex. Governor Youngkin summed things up this way, quote, children don't belong to the state, they belong to families. Greg? Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia faced student walkouts for telling schools to put parents in the loop on their kids' sexuality and not allowing teachers to make those decisions. I really believe, Dave, I've said this all year long, I really think that parents' rights will be a big issue in November. What is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, I live in Loudoun County, so this is home for me as I watched things happen. I think you said it in summary of Governor Youngkin's remarks that children belong to their parents, not to the state. And he went on to say that he encourages children to listen to their parents and trust their parents. God created family. He didn't create the state in order to indoctrinate our kids. This is a critical step in the right direction here in Virginia.
Amen, my friend. Okay, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre announced that Kamala Harris will visit the Korean DMZ. Take a listen.
The Vice President will visit the DMZ. Nearly 70 years since the Korean armistice.
Dave, maybe she got confused and thought that was the southern border. I'm not sure, but I've never heard of the Korean armistice. But do you think the Vice President is practicing diplomacy or building her foreign policy resume for 24?
Well, politics is always politics, and our border czar is going to South Korea. Prime Minister of South Korea, Han Duck-soo, announced this, and this is right after President Kim Jong-un in North Korea shot off a ballistic missile recently. And listen, the Prime Minister of South Korea thanked our Vice President for securing their border. She probably could be spending some time focusing on our border.
Dave, this is Greg. We just saw the nation of Italy vote in a conservative female leader, Giorgia Meloni, who supports Christianity. She supports the family. Now, this follows nations like Poland, Hungary, and France. Is Europe tossing off the progressive policies of the EU?
Well, it's interesting. In her most recent remarks, she mentioned specifically calling out radical Islam and the negative effects that agenda has had on Europe. And so, absolutely, listen, this leader of Italy, she stands for faith, for family, and for freedom. This is a great day for Europe.
Okay, Dave, yesterday, your organization, Intercessors for America, held a live prayer session for Christians in China. Why did you choose that focus, China?
Well, China has decades ago declared a war with the United States to become the top global power. They've been a part of this non-military war for decades now, doing things like manipulating currency, stealing secrets from the United States, buying swaths of land here in the U.S. Their goal is to simply come in and peaceably occupy the United States. They've been making great progress in the last few years. So we've really got to watch this. China is something we've got to be praying about. And let me just tell you, over this weekend, there were some strange irregularities within the Chinese government. I'm not sure we will ever quite know what's going on, but the Chinese government, the Chinese people have an election, a so-called election here in a couple of weeks. We got to be praying about this.
Okay, so we know about the Uyghurs, the way they've treated them, the Muslim Uyghurs, and their slavery issues that they have. Are they still persecuting Christians and churches there? We're under 30 seconds here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're one of the highest ranked contributors to the limits of human rights across the globe. And so, yeah, absolutely. China continues to violate human rights.